The first step is to feel that you're good enough.
Most people never hear this. For a long time, it feels like you're trying to figure out everything on your own. The money, the work, the decisions. So you try to just keep going. Take whatever job you can. Do whatever it takes. But instead of feeling stable, it still feels uncertain. Like no matter how hard you try, you're just trying to keep up. And the hardest part is you start questioning yourself. Am I doing this right? Until one realization changes how you see everything. Stay with me.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Welcome to Pat Hankin, author of the Field Guide for Single Parents, business professional, and longtime voice in the parenting community of nearly 500,000. Pat blends lived experience with practical expertise in finance, time management, and support systems to offer clear, actionable advice for solo parents navigating real-life challenges. Welcome, Pat. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Rena. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. So let's start first. Share with us, how did you become a single parent, and then how it kind of led to other things?
Yes, I actually was an older single parent. I became a parent at the age of 40, so much younger. So at that point, I already had a career and systems in place to run my life. And I was gobsmacked by how much reorganization I had to do with my life, and it changed every day. So I applied a lot of lessons from my business life and brought them into my personal life to be able to get things to run smoothly and chaos-free. But most of all, I had goals I wanted to achieve. I had values that I was dedicated to. I wanted to educate my daughter. I wanted to have a life that had value, reflected my values, and being able to bring her up in a nurturing environment. And that requires me not to be stressed out, which, as we know, as single parents, doing it all can provide a huge amount of external stress to us, particularly if you're working. And 75% of single parents are working outside the home. So I think it's important to talk about this topic today, which is money and how to earn it, the best way to increase it as a single parent, how to spend it, and believe it or not, yes, how to save it. That does happen. My goal as a parent was to save for college, ultimately. So there are steps you do ahead of that, and that's what we'll talk about today, hopefully.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. What led you how did you start leading the community of single parents? How did that come about?
That's really interesting. I have a background in volunteering to do things. A service background is the way I was brought up. And during the pandemic, when we were all in our homes in our sweatpants, at that point I had my own business, so it made it easier for me to be able to volunteer. I didn't have to travel. I didn't have to go anywhere. And I started reading a single parent community on the old Reddit before they went public. And there were 470,000 parents there. And I said, well, this is interesting. And these people are interesting to talk to. I didn't have this community when I was a single parent. Bringing up my daughter. My daughter was now in college at this point. And I emailed the moderators, can I help? Never answered me, so I did it anyway. The first thing I did is just focus on keeping the creeps out, like no dating, no soliciting money. And then people would ask questions and I would say, I know the answer to that. I can help, right? I'm a consultant. So I started answering things, and the people were answering each other, and they were creating a real sense of best practices for people to solve their issues. And this went on and increased in numbers for 2 to 3 years. And somebody brought me up short and said, where can I read about all this stuff in a book? And I had been keeping track of, sometimes we get the same questions. There were universal themes, universal concerns. And I went and did my research, and there was no book. Now, we can talk about that sometime on why a book for 19 to 30 million parents in this planet, in this country, don't have a resource book, but I spent the next few years writing it and published it last month for everyone. So a lot of what people get in the field guide for single parents is the wisdom of the crowds.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you so much for creating that powerful resource.
Labor of love.
Yes, I can relate
You can.
in writing my own. It's a labor of love. If you had to summarize today, rather, so it's a very comprehensive guide, and I had an opportunity to start diving into it, and I love
good.
how comprehensive it is. I started with the money chapter, and I'm going to go deep then into relationships. If you were to summarize, I guess, the money chapter, what would you say are three most key elements that single parents need to know when it comes to money?
Well, we have a lot of external stress around money. There's no question. No matter how you came to become a single parent, if it was divorce, the money was all spoken for before you got divorced. Now you're splitting it over 2 households, that kind of thing. The other thing we suffer from is internal vulnerability, our own sense of self. And I'm here to give your listeners a message of hope. There are ways to alleviate that without having to do tremendous amounts of long-term internal work. I think working towards some immediate action plans and things we can do in terms of organizing our money, earning it and spending it, and also to understand that you are enough as you are right now. You have incredible skills. You are creative. You're resourceful. And if you ever had a toddler, you're collaborative. So you should feel good and not feel less than when you're approaching the working world in terms of earning the money. And there's a million ways to do it now. And in my experience, as I said, I've gone through 4 recessions in my life. There's a job market everywhere. The market kept changing as I was writing the book, so it'll come around. You don't lack. It's the most important thing for you to do is find the right job or the right income stream, because it might not be working for someone else. It might be working for yourself, or it may be putting together a bunch of things to create it. But be able to understand there's a job market everywhere, you are enough, and you can be able to put together something, and it's important it's the right job. My job before my daughter was born, I was on an airplane every week to another city, country, whatever. That was not the right job for me. I mean, it was simply not the right job. If you have a job that requires you to stay over or late or whatever else, it's not the right job. It's not the company's fault. It's just, you got to go find someone else. Or you have to massage where you are. So those are the biggest things. And then we get down to brass tacks in the book on how to do it. How do you find the right job? How do you work with the people I call it love the one you're with, the people you're already working for, and knowing whether it's even worthwhile staying where you are, or do you need to start to upskill. And what's great now in terms of the market and how you work in it is that things have really changed since I started out. I mean, there's hybrid work, there's remote work. I'm not a huge fan of it, but some people, they're used to it. A lot of work is about relationships, and it's really hard to establish those with your colleagues if you're working remotely, particularly if you're just starting out. But you have to work with what your job is and what your life is like. So you have to find the right job. We talk about that. There's more of the demographics. Let's just talk the statistics about that. The demographics are, we have this cliff that started in 1998, where we just don't have as many workers coming up with the Gen Z. If you look at it, you'll see huge swaths of universities and colleges going out of business because there just simply isn't the people here. The plan was we were going to rely on immigration to be able to fill in our low birth rate. Well, we all know what happened with that in the last few years. It's so that less people to work means higher wages for those people who are working. So there's a lot of external factors working in the single parent's favor that, it's probably never been better.
Right. What would you say to the fact that there were a lot of layoffs last year to single parents?
I will say that having worked in business for over 40 years, any company can get rid of 10% of its workforce and you'd never feel it. Now, it's no fun to be part of that 10%, right? I've been part of that 10%, but I want people to read these headlines with some basis, with some measure of clickbait, right? So you're being asked to read these things. And I think that what you have to understand is, why did those 10%, why were they considered extraneous to a company? Think about what it is. And then get your mentality in the 90%. The 90% is that you have the skills that they need for the next job, for whatever. And if you have a job or you're already employed, I'd say make yourself invaluable. If you're interviewing for jobs, I wouldn't start with what's your paid time off and your child care policy. Companies are in business to make money. They're not there to subsidize our lifestyles, right? So
Right.
understanding, and this goes with the relationships too. They're all relationships. Understanding what the other party needs can really hone in on, is it the right company for you? Is it the right employer? Is it the right job? And is that something you want to go after? Also understanding that you have to do this person to person when you're looking, or when you're trying to move up in your job. You have to talk to people live. I know that feels life-threatening for some people, but it's too easy to dismiss an email from someone, right?
Right.
And my daughter was applying for her first postgraduate job. She's in science, as we talked about. She was not in one of the she's in New Orleans, right? So it's not one of the big biotech hubs or research hubs like Boston. I wish she'd come home, but she likes where she lives. And she said, well, I apply for these jobs and I never get them. And I said, where are they? She says, well, they're on Indeed. And I said, those jobs don't exist. She said, what do you mean? I said, those jobs are posted after they've identified a candidate, and they have to post it. And then you have too many people. It's too easy to apply in these applicant tracking systems that are really broken. It goes back down to relationships, understanding what the other party needs, and then putting yourself in their position, whether it's talking in their language or getting the skills that they need to be able to be interested in you. And one of the ways to do it is to talk to people in the job you think you might like and say, what does it take to be successful in this profession or this job or this career? And if you are just starting out, like my daughter, she did ultimately get a job, by the way. And how she got it, I told her to start with her professors at college and say, I'm looking for work. And within a month, she had 3 offers. So it does, and she was, an entry-level scientist. So it does it does work.
Right.
I don't think I've ever gotten an interview applying to something online. Never know if you know someone, only as a last resort.
Right. Very good points. You're so right. Relationships, because when people know you, it's less easy to dismiss you versus when you're online and you just like a million of others that they can.
Yeah, you're faceless. Is that what you do in your coaching? You coach people on the relationships as far as
Relationship
opportunities?
to themselves, not
Okay. Well, that's
coming back
important.
to yourself, how you feel like you
Right.
feel enough.
Well, and understanding that's important, because when you're out there in the workforce, you're got to start from a position of strength. I never took a science class after high school, right? I'm an economist. I guess that's a science. It's a fake science, but starting if your strengths, if you're looking for work and you know what your strengths are, I wouldn't apply to a laboratory, right? I'd have to go re-educate myself. And there are plenty of places to do it. The other thing we have that, along with remote work, is we have online certifications now. That's huge in terms of being able to upskill yourself into a job. There are many ways, whether you're looking to upskill in your current job or whether you're looking to go find a new job. The thing is that the process is the same. You start with acquiring data. Libraries are huge, utilized resources. They not only can tell you where to look for the information you want, for instance, salary.com, you can look up what the job expectation is, right? What people generally in your area make for that. And you can see if that's going to be a self-sustaining profession or not. There are many jobs that single parents take that I do caution them about. That is some of these gig workers. It might be like a last-ditch survival thing to do, but I'm not convinced of the benefits that it provides, or after you take out all your costs, to own a car, to drive around, to pay for childcare. I think you have to be very selective So instead of, looking for work or income that's fire, 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 I'm like, ready, aim, fire.
Total. Total. You make very good points. You gotta consider kind of how it fits, how the role fits, and if it costs, if the benefits outweigh the costs of having those kind of jobs.
So one of the things that's helpful in whether that job is worthwhile or that career path is worthwhile is to go for a search to MIT Living Wage Calculator, and they will tell you by county what it takes for a parent with one or two or children to live in that area. And in Boston, it's $122,000 with one child for you to have a sustainable income with. And the big problem is our cost of housing and childcare. And I even think that calculator is pretty low. Hopefully you live in an area that's not so insane, but that can seem overwhelming here. And the fact, what I'm trying to make here is if you don't make that kind of money, then you need subsidies. You need subsidies for healthcare, you need subsidies for education, for childcare. And there are different ways. You can still have your kid go to YMCA camp because they have sliding subsidies. And this is just what it takes, and it's not forever. And generally, if you qualify one, you qualify for many. If you have a person in your life that's offered to help, then this is a good task to give them research subsidies. And this is that's income when you think about it. That counts as income, is to be able to get an electrical bill down to half. It can help. These things can give you a support, a floor to stand on while you're working on the other ones. There's lots of levers to push, but you have to do it. Can't sit home and doom scroll and have a glass of wine. It's not going to get you to your next step. Or you could read the book, get to the next step with a glass of wine. All right. Okay.
Totally. So what would you recommend? What should there be? What the first step should be for somebody who is struggling?
The first step is to feel that you're good enough, right? Talk to you, get an internal feeling, understand what you have in terms of skills. And then if you want to start talking to people, and the 5 most powerful words is, can I get your advice? Nobody's going to turn you down for that because everybody likes to get advice. And I'm the worst at it. I just read a 400-page book on advice. But I don't want to give advice to people that don't ask for it, right? The second thing is to acquire data in terms of, what am I thinking about? Lie on a picnic table and say to yourself, do I want to do? I know somebody that wanted to work with animals. Veterinary school was out of the picture for a lot of reasons. There are many professions, if you start smaller, a vet tech, for example, and that doesn't require college. There are many things that you can do and steps on the way that when things are a little easier for you, you can continually upskill to, as you can become a veterinarian. I know a guy who did it when he was 40. There are healthcare, recession-proof industry. We're all getting older. We all need help. There are many, many, many organizations nearby if you like working with people. If you don't like working with people, it's probably not a good place to go if you're face-to-face. But many, many career paths there don't require you to go to college. So if you haven't done that, the nursing is a tough program. You can do some of it online and you can get some of it real time, but you can also get these interim certifications that get your toe in the industry and see if you want to stay. And they also have internal support for people, these huge organizations, to pay you to go get skills. So there are lots of things to do, but it starts with thinking about, and you are completely entitled to say, what do I really want to do? And then go for it. And knowing that you have the soft skills that every employer is dying to get. When I say soft skills, those things I talked about in terms of time management, punctuality, you got to get your kids to school on time, you'll get to work on time, and a mindset that you really do love meeting people and hearing about what they do and how to get there. And I think those things are very helpful, not to get caught in some of these jobs that I think like multi-level marketing plans, which are terrible. Less than 7% of people make back their investments. I don't know anybody that ever got a pink Cadillac. So, there are things to do when you need money. There are resources. There are lots of levers to press. So if you're having a bad week, looking for applications or nobody's calling you back or whatever else, there are other things you can do in the meantime, including volunteering for the Red Cross, like I did.
Yeah, and you said you discovered your new job through that, through
It
volunteering.
was, yeah, it was the next job I got was related to somebody that I worked with during Hurricane Katrina. Plus, it got me interviews. Everybody wanted to know what it was like to work on a disaster like that.
You become interesting.
Yes, yes. You become interesting after you are interested on the people on the other side of the table.
Totally, totally. Thank you. So another part of the book is relationships, which is another big component of any life, not just single parenting, but single parenting is more so because you are now navigating life as a single person. So what would you say is the most important pieces of would you want single parents to know when it comes to relationships?
Not everybody is going to love you. I mean, there are a lot of ingrained biases that people have. You don't know what they are. You can't control them, and not to let them get to you. They just are. Despite the fact that it's 30%, 40% of households are headed by a single parent. There's a lot of, if you look at the popular culture and how single parents are portrayed, it's offensive to me. We're not all broken. We're not all desperate. We want the best for our children. We're incredible managers and we're moving through life successfully. We just need people to stand shoulder to shoulder with us. You probably are bringing along people that you've had as friends before you became a parent. And the thing to do is to look around and see if those are the people you want to be like, because there's this expression that we are the product of our 5 closest friends. And if you take the current network theory of social relationships, that extends to friends of friends. And if you look around and these people are not getting their act together, right, then this aren't going to be a people you can learn from and grow with. If you have friends that seem to be working hard towards their goals, if they're, I have, most of my friends are actually married or whatever, to the environment that I'm in. But if they are working towards a goal, if they're got things that they have a personal life you can admire, as opposed to being jealous about it, look at it as someone you can learn from. Going out to bars, spending $100 for a babysitter, and getting hammered is not probably going to take you in the direction of your goals. So that is one thing for relationships to look forward to. As far as in general, we talked about understanding the person on the other side of the table, asking them who they are, what they are, being interested in who they are, really will get you a long way from everyone from your doctor, because nobody ever talks to them like they're humans, to the teacher across the table from the parent-teacher conference.
Totally.
Was there something specific that came to mind when I said those things?
No, you're so right. When you make it more about the other person instead about yourself, you get to learn the other person better. And it's not, how you call it, you get better into the rapport state with them. You get to better understand them.
Yeah.
Maybe help them.
So I'm an anomaly in this area, but I'm in the Boston area, by the way. I don't know if I made that clear. And one of the things we have here is this huge research industry, and we get a lot of people who emigrate here to work in the laboratories. They get recruited in from all over the world. In my experience, these professionals that came in didn't have the same preconceptions and stigma around single parenting. Gay immigrants. And it was easier for me to find a community around this group of people than it was around other native-born Americans that might have had a particular preconception of it. And I think that it's important to understand that not everybody, you're not going to be compatible with everybody. And it may hurt when someone says to you, oh, I have to take this phone call every time you try and talk to them, or I'm too busy. That's really more about them than you, and to move on, to let it go and move on. And it's hard to do that. I understand. You can mourn the loss of a friend or an associate or companionship, but they're just going to be different people at different stages of your life too. You're more available.
Yeah. I like this book, Four Agreements by Don Ruiz.
What's it called?
It's called Four Agreements, number four agreements. And when we come into this life, we make agreements with the world, with ourselves, with other people. And one of the agreements is don't take things personally. So when you meet with somebody and something didn't go well, or maybe the other person was late coming in, and you start thinking, what, I'm not valuable enough for them to be on time for me? Meanwhile, it has nothing to do with you. Maybe they had something happened on their end, totally nothing to do with you. And you start assuming it's about me. I am disrespected. How dare they? Because we have this expectation and we have this, of other people. So don't take things personally is one of the agreements. And I really love that because world does not revolve around you. There are many things that could be happening, and it's not necessarily that you are bad. People have the whole world in their head.
Yeah, and it's this: the older you get, the easier it is to walk away.
Yes, yes,
But tell yourself that. That's a good internal chat.
yeah,
I'm good enough. Things happened to them. Somebody got sick. They had a fight that morning. Their boss was screaming at them. Whatever it is, you don't know what's going on.
yes.
And that happens in the job search process too. People cancel, they disrespect your time. I've got, biggest one I see is the medical industry is they're always changing your appointments. And you've got the whole day, month, week, year planned out, and they come
Yeah.
in and change it. And finally they sent me a survey and I said, you might want to revisit your assumptions on that your patients have nothing else to do.
I love it when you make an appointment, you go there and then you sit and wait for 2 hours for them to
That
come
happens.
see you for 5 minutes. But God forbid you are late for like 5 minutes. You have
Huh?
to come back another time.
Is that New
Meanwhile, if
York?
you come on time, you'll be sitting there 2 hours waiting for them to make an appearance of 5 minutes.
Well, then think about they had an emergency come in, right?
No, I
So
know. Don't take things
these poor
personally.
doctors. No, no, no. It's like doctors. Most people don't know they're only allocated 5 to 15 minutes per person, and the poor pediatricians have two patients, the child and the parent, right? That
Right.
they got to somehow get through. I mean, that's a stacked system. Now, one of the things, though, is if you go into healthcare, I think you get bonus points. These people, oh, my son's a doctor and he fixed it all up for us. Good for you. The rest of us are sitting there. But this is one of the things that you learn, right? So I carry a tote bag with my work in it. That's what I do. What does Arena want to talk about? Well, I'm going to sit there and think about it for a while. It is maddening. And that's another example of leaving time in your schedule for things to go wrong. So you don't get so frustrated by all these things that happen and realizing, a lot of these people do want your money, so they're going to see you. What's the motivation here? Remember, way back when we first started talking, it's really important to understand what the other person needs, right? And it may be they have a certain budget they have to make. Or in any relationship, it may be that it's something that fits into their life. It's never going to be someone who gives me a hard time. Nobody needs that. So don't be the person that gives a hard time. Your teachers, your doctors, your friends, the pharmacist, make friends everywhere. Yeah.
My goal is when I meet people that they live better off than when they met them. To give them some kind of value, to make them smile, to feel them good inside.
That's a wonderful, wonderful approach, And some people will never, and that person may never think about what you need and to make you feel good. It doesn't go one to one. I think you have to rely on the karma factor for that.
Yeah, totally.
And spreading karma around as a single parent, and nobody's busier than a single parent. Nobody, none, right? Okay. Spreading that around actually saves you time. People say, oh, Pat, how's it save you time? And I tell the story about there's a guy when I had to drive downtown Boston. It's a nightmare to drive to if you've ever been here, and they don't want you here. It's $60 a day to park, and once in a while I'd have to drive downtown because I needed the car after work or whatever, and the transportation system's pretty rickety. So I had this guy. This guy was such a hustler. He hustled the cars, and not only that, we have to stack the cars because we don't have big parking lots. And this guy he was running around. And I was like, boy, I really like this guy's work ethic, right? So little could I afford it. I would tip them a few bucks, right? To take my car and go stack it with the other cars. And inevitably, you get that call at work, got to come to the school and get your kid. They're sick, right?
Yeah.
All right, that's going to happen. But if I had my car with me, my car was never buried. I didn't have to wait half an hour to get my car out because Mr. Hustle, right? He got my karma with the tips and he got my car out. And, you learn those things that sometimes it isn't, you shouldn't be penny wise and pound foolish. Sometimes you should be pound foolish and put out the money and be able to get it back.
Totally. Yeah. Everything comes back to you tenfold. What you
And we
give
need
out, you
time.
get back. One question I always ask all of my guests is, what is the most important trait to instill
in the child, that is that they're loved. We have very little time, between working and care tasks. And I'm not a big takeout person. I don't think in the end, I think it makes us fat and we're going to suffer health-wise in the long run. Once in a while, good, right? But I'm making food, I'm doing laundry, and everybody's really busy. And then I got my work after they go to bed. But what I would do is read chapter books for an hour every night. We would just be together for an hour where it was just our time and no phones, no nothing. And then she decided to play hockey, which is an incredible all-in sport that had, you're either skating at 6 a.m. or 10 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah. For girls, got different guys and times than the guys. And yeah, I made every practice and I made every game. I mean, that was sort of like put a pin in it for the day. Everything else is going to go around that. And it was important. And I picked those two things. So for you, pick those two things that are important for you and use those in your very time-starved life to help your child feel loved.
Thank you. So important. I love it.
Yeah.
What is your superpower if you had to pick?
My superpower is the way I acquire, distill, and organize information. I used to have a superpower of this memory that was, I had this prodigious memory. Everybody hated it because you could never win an argument with me. I was always right. I was Google before there was Google, ask me. But terrible thing to bring to a relationship. But now when you get older, that your reproductive memory, right, starts to get replaced by your analytical memory. So now I have to write things down. I didn't have to have little notes all over the place. Got a whole board here of notes. Take out cat food. Remember to bring to the dump. I've notes all over the place. I read everything, and it's not BuzzFeed. Okay, it's internet. I'll read obscure magazines. We talk about this topic. And then I'm able to distill it down to people and organize it that it's accessible and useful for them.
Mm-hmm.
That was really important. That realizing, just like when you're raising a child, they don't have the information you have, right, to be able to accomplish something. My goal is to bring information down that you can use, assuming you haven't done this before. Because none of us came with an instruction book on how to be a single parent. And there are 470,000 people in that community that were willing to give us information to be able to do that. So that, I hope, is what you take from this, that this is a book that you can dip in and out of as it suits you. Not every chapter is going to be this age stage of your kids or where you are in relationships or whatever else. So there are ways that my co-author talks about ways you can fuel a child with your nurturing with only 15 minutes. Well, I had to learn about that theory and what it was going to do. I didn't know that. So that's my superpower. And yours?
I can relate to that, making complex information simple or easy to understand. I think I have similar ability. Yeah, kind of take some big topic and make it digestible and easy to understand. And when I speak to people, I don't use acronyms. I try to understand where they are coming from, what is their world, and then explain it in a way that they can understand. And another one, to motivate and inspire people, to make them feel good about themselves and what's possible.
Passing around the karma.
Yes. I believe no matter how old you are, we still have 5-year-old inside of us ready to come out and play.
Yeah.
Ready and dream, because the dreams that we were given to us for a reason. They weren't given to our parents, to our children. They were given to us, and it's up to us to go chase those dreams and not make the cemetery the richest place on earth.
Yes. I think that's fabulous. And we do talk about everything starts from what do you really want to accomplish? What would you really want to accomplish? And work backwards from there. What it's going to take to get there. Sometimes fantasies are fun. I don't want to be a firefighter, but
Yeah.
different kind of fires, right? Different kind of fire.
Totally. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you. If people
Always
would
fun.
like to get your book, where would they go?
They can go to Amazon and get it from there. Libraries, you can ask your library to order it. It's already in 10% of the libraries in the US. If you don't have a library card, if you don't get one, you'll save a ton of money. You can borrow everything there and you can ask them to order the book. And you can also buy it from on. It is the Field Guide for Single Parents. My name is Pat Hankin, and I have a website. You can buy it through there if you want, pathankin.com. And my goal for 2026 is to get this in as many hands as possible. I think, like you said, you want to make people feel better off than before they met you.
That's right. That's why
Tons
this
of
podcast is here also to bring tools and knowledge to single parents.
Exactly. The subtitle of the book is your practical tips to make your life feel more manageable. And I think that's what a lot of these self-help books lack, right? These are tips and tricks that you can implement at any time, to be able to keep moving forward and enjoying life.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's been
Irina. It was a
awesome to
pleasure.
have you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing.
And you too.
All right. Have a good day.
Good day.
If something in this conversation gave you clarity, take one small step forward today. You don't need to figure everything out at once, just the next step. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with someone who can benefit.